Hello and welcome to the Wellness Connection podcast with Fiona Kane. I'm your host, Fiona Kane, and I have another guest today, and we're going to be talking about why listening to your body is the key to your success in life and business. So my guest today is Karina Hogan. Hi, Karina.
Hey, Fee. Oh, is it okay if I call you Fee and be that informal?
That's fine. That's fine. We've known each other for a long time now. I'm not quite sure exactly how long, but
About 2010, I reckon.
So that's what, about 14 years since
Mm.
we haven't seen each other for a long time, but we met all those years ago, and we've sort of stayed in connection. So for those of you who don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I am 59 years young, or 59 laps on the planet, however you want to do that. 59 times around the sun, that sort of stuff, because people don't like saying I'm 59 years old. So I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a nanny of 3 amazing grandkids, and anytime you want me to talk feed, just ask me to talk about the grandkids, so I can do that. I run my own business, and I run it pretty much to suit my lifestyle, because that's what I'm about. I'm about how do I create a lifestyle that I love, because to me, if you can generate income doing what you love, then why the frick not? You get to hang with cool people, you make, really nice connections. I mix business and pleasure all the time. I do business with friends because I think, why wouldn't you hang out with people that you love? So to me, it doesn't make sense not to. Um,
Yes.
I'm a fully qualified life and business coach. I've been coaching since 2007. You can do the maths on that. We're 2024. Um, I, I guess I'm quite an entrepreneur. I love trying different things. I like variety. I like challenge. I like adventure. So I think nature and the outdoors is probably the outdoor university for me. I
Yes.
never went to university, didn't really interest me that much, but I have done a lot of courses and a lot of trainings over the years. Hence why we met when we were doing one back in like 2010 to 2012 or something like that, because growth
Yes.
is in my
Yeah.
top 3 values. I love it, and I love connection. Like, connection is so important to me. So to
Mm.
me, everything's connected and it all comes back.
Yes.
So, what I love to do is empower people. I love to nurture people. I love to give them strategies and skills um, to create that lifestyle that's right for them. And it's going to look different.
Mm.
What your lifestyle is going to look different to my lifestyle. You and hubby Greg, me and my
Yeah.
hubby. My hubby's retired now, but I'm still working. And 3 days a week. So it's about what's right for me. And what lights me up. So that's
Yeah.
why I've discovered over the years that we have this internal guidance system that actually empowers us to live a better life,
Mm.
a more informed life, a more connected life. And that's where the listening to your body, has been really key for me, to regain my health, which I'll go into, and
Mm.
establish um, an abundant life, like to create an abundant life, because that's
Yes.
actually how we're designed to be. We're actually designed to
Mm.
live in abundance, not lack. And
Yeah. Yeah.
that
Definitely.
journey to get, to that place. And we were just saying off camera before, last year I was in my business. I knew that there was a shift and a change. So every time I change, my business evolves. Every time I
Yes.
change and I grow and I learn something new, number one, I want to share that with other people. But number two, and the other thing is I get bored. I don't know about you, but I like variety. So I get bored doing the same thing, talking about the same thing. So I'm always growing, learning, evolving. And in that, I came across this piece of the puzzle, and it was funny. I was taking some time out. I was in Bendigo visiting my son, and I was having a coffee I can still remember where it was. I was having a coffee in this arcade, and I had the most beautiful chai tea. I think it was a prana chai or something. It was fabulous. And I was just sitting out in nature, like under these really cool trees, big, massive trees. I don't know what they were, but And I was drinking my tea and I was just sitting there pondering, as I often do. And I sort of got this, and I can't remember how it came about, but it was a huge epiphany around, we have this innate wisdom that resides within us that communicates with us about our body and how to do life and how we can do it differently. And looking back over the years and how I've connected into my body and the journey that I went on for my health and wellness, the more connected and the more I tuned and listened to my body and how it reacted or responded to things depended on the level of health and well-being that I had versus what I didn't. And it was like, oh my God, if I listen to this, then I'm going to be on track and I'm going to be in tune and I'm going to be connected to this amazing source of wisdom. And I like to tweak with words and play with words. So I remember sitting there going, okay, so it's an innate wisdom, yes, and I've heard other people talk about this, but it was like, oh my freaking God. It was one of those aha moments that just strike you to the core of your being and causes a bit of a seismic shift. And I was like, but I don't want to call it like innate wisdom. That's a bit boring. And I remembered a ski trip I went to New Zealand with my dad back in the 90s, and we were skiing powder snow, which we don't get a lot of in Australia for the people that don't know and aren't skiers. And Dad suggested we hire a mountain guide for the day, which we did. And this guide was really cool. And he took us on to like secret little spots on the mountain. And he had a buddy who was actually skiing in an extreme skiing competition. These are the guys that ski off cliffs, do somersaults, do everything weird and
Jump out of
dangerous and
helicopters, is it that
life-threatening.
sort of thing? Yeah. Yeah, like the people who jump out of helicopters and that sort of
Yeah,
thing.
but they were doing
Yeah.
it
I've
on
been
the
to
mountain.
Queenstown in New Zealand. They like to do lots of dangerous things
I
there. I was watching
know.
them do the bungee jumping off that bridge there too.
Yeah,
I'm
yes,
happy just to watch.
I know. I'm a bit like, oh, I want to have a go at that. And so this guy wanted to watch his mate. So he skied us down to this area, this vantage point that was off piste, which means not on the basic groomed ski run, so he could
Mm.
actually watch his buddy. However, I was only an intermittent skier. My dad was a better skier than me. And I looked down and we had to ski down this chute, which was like a narrow corridor, and it had like these big, massive boulders scattered, and it was a little bit icy. And I'm like, you want us to ski down there to get to there? I think you're crazy. And he goes, it's okay, Karina, just look at me. And all you have to do is one turn at a time. Ski
Yes.
where I ski and just follow it.
Mm.
And I'm like, I'm pretty much into self-preservation, but I like a bit of risk. And I'm looking at this going, and we'd done a bit of skiing by this stage. So the guy had assessed whether we were, up for it or not. And
Mm.
so I sort of went, in my head, I sort of did a quick assessment and I sort of went, well, he wouldn't be asking us to do it if he didn't think we could do it. Maybe I should just trust him and follow the guide.
Mm.
So I went, okay. And when you ski and you're on an incline, you have to commit. You can't hang back, because if you hang back, you actually lose control over your skis. So you commit, you're in. So I went, okay, I'm in. And I did it and I skied down, and then I looked back to where I came and went, that's amazing. Like, I was so rapt. But what I learned was my innate wisdom within me, I now call my internal ski guide.
Ah, that's where
So
you
I
got the name
listen
from,
to it,
internal ski guide.
I'll follow it. It's often just one turn at a time. Try this, do that, course correct if you need to. So I tell you all that to tell you that listening to that internal ski guide is really important for your health and well-being, because sometimes when you slip,
Yes.
you can die.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well,
that's
my
what I
ski
learned.
story isn't quite as good as that one. My ski story involves me sort of trying to ski down this well, I'd call it a mountain, but other people would probably call it a little tiny hill. And not being able to do it and losing control and going halfway down on my, like laying down, halfway down on my backside, eventually coming to a stop sort of halfway down the mountain, sitting there crying, saying, "Get me out of here." And my husband came up to me and said, "Listen, there's only two ways you're going to get off this mountain. You're either going to ski down or you're going to take your skis off, you're going to walk down. Which is it?"
Yeah.
I'm going to walk down. So, and I went down, I walked down and I booked in for a skiing lesson the next day.
Oh,
And
there you go.
I did a bit of a lesson. I had already done one. I did a bit more of a lesson, and the guy who was giving me the lesson actually said, "I think you should maybe go and sit in the cafe and have a hot chocolate. I think you've had enough for today." And that was my sort of little confirmation for me that my ski career was over. I was the person who was falling over and knocking over all the little children. The little
Oh,
children all stand there looking at you,
right.
and then I was like, I was falling and heading towards them and kind of
Yeah.
going, "Move, move, move," because I couldn't stop myself because I was just flying across the ice. Anyway,
But
my ski story isn't as good as yours. I didn't get
no,
to.
some of us are built for, we call it après ski. That sit in the place, drink the hot chocolate, drink the wine, whatever, and watch the others ski past. It's always nice,
Yes,
and it's
yes,
a good balance in
I'm that
relationship.
person now.
So if Greg's the skier, you're the après skier. So it's balance. See, it's all about balance.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
exactly. I can
important.
handle that inside,
Yeah,
nice and warm. Just
yeah.
I can do that. I can do that bit really, really well.
Yeah, I'm up for that. And to me, it's all about checking in with your capacity. So it's in in one of the courses that I did to actually get my health back on track, because I want to tell a little bit about how sick I actually was, so people actually get
Mm,
where I am today,
definitely.
how miraculous that is. And I know
Mm,
you have a very cool story about your ill health journey as well, and hence why you're in what you're in your profession. But
mm,
I back in, when was it, 2012, I had a whole series of events happen in 12 months that were huge stress events. Like
mm,
I remember going and getting some coaching with a mutual friend of ours at the time, because I couldn't kickstart the year. I couldn't get
mm,
myself into gear come 2012. Um, I just had no mojo whatsoever, and I didn't know what was going
mm,
on. And I was talking to my friend, and they said, "So what's been going on in your life?" And I went, "Well, my dad died. Um,
mm,
we actually had one of our favourite dogs die. My son was in a relationship, and that broke up. I can't remember all the things, but there was like, I had a couple of clients actually just ghost me. Like, we were getting amazing results and they just cut me off and did not communicate why and what they were doing.
mm,
So I had all these major stress events and grief, like really big amounts of grief going through. And
mm,
when dad died in 2011, it was now both my parents were dead. Like, so my mum and my dad had died. And I'm sorry if this is upsetting, bringing up stuff. So, and it was the end of mum and dad. There was no one to
mm,
ring to talk to or go and have a cuppa with, where I could go, remind me about mum, because mum died back in 94. And I thought I was okay because I'd, lived through mum dying, and
mm,
I was okay. And so I was sort of around that, and mum and dad both died suddenly, and
mm,
but years apart. And I was like, oh no, I got this. I know what to expect. But it was nothing like I expected, because it was dad dying
mm,
plus there was an end of mum and dad. So, like,
mm.
part of me felt, oh, I feel like a freaking orphan now. It was weird. And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
I just, my tank was just in zero. I'd given and given and given and given. I just kept going, and I freaking, the words you said before this call, it was, I was soldiering on, because I'd learned to soldier on. That's what I was taught. That was ingrained in me growing up, to soldier on. If stuff happens, you be resilient, you get up on your feet and you keep going. If you muck up, you own it. If you do stuff, you just keep going. And as a society, and I think especially women, we are told to soldier on. Like there's even an ad around Codral flu tablets or whatever. Don't stop and
Yeah, do they
listen and
still do
rest your
that
body.
since COVID? I don't know if they still do that. Are they doing it again? Because I noticed it stopped around COVID because they didn't want people soldiering on everywhere. They didn't want people coming to work then. But up
Yeah,
until
I don't
then,
know.
that
I
was
don't watch.
always the message, those ads.
I don't watch commercial television, so I wouldn't have a
Yeah.
clue.
Yeah, but
um,
right up until then, it was the message, and I used to talk about the same thing, but I don't know if they've started them again or what they've done since then. But yeah,
yeah,
it changed when suddenly they didn't want you to come to work.
yeah. Funny about
But yeah,
that.
you're
Oh,
right.
stay home if you're
The
sick.
message,
Yeah, yeah. I know.
yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly.
But the whole COVID
But
thing did
that's
my
the
head in a
message.
little bit with the whole. Because to me, I was thinking, as a kid when we grew up, if you got sick and you got a cold and stuff like that, you stayed home and you rested. You didn't go out in the
Yes,
public and contaminate everyone and exhaust yourself when you actually needed to stay home, drink fluids, and rest, so your body could actually
yes,
regenerate. Um,
yeah,
but and so yeah, all that thing just did my head in a little bit to thinking,
yeah,
yeah, do all that, but that's a whole other conversation. So yeah, so what happened? 2012. And so I actually decided with my coach at the time to actually take a sabbatical, to take 3 months off to try and regroup, and deal with all this emotional stuff that I had to go through. And I realized I'd actually been soldiering on. I realized that's when I actually got introduced to Brene Brown and her amazing TED talk on vulnerability. It
yes,
was around learning to be vulnerable and to ask for help, because I was shy at asking for help. I was very good at soldiering on and doing it all independently. I was a very strong, independent woman. Like I traveled the country on my own. I did stuff on my own. I sorted it. I was. However, having lived that adrenalized life from a teenager, and all this stress event that my body couldn't handle and didn't know what to do with, it fell apart. And I'd had a lot of signals over those years to slow down, to stop, to do this and to do that. And I call them the feather approach. So my body's going, no, you actually need a little bit of time out. Actually, you need to have a little bit of rest. Actually, you need to take more than a month off when your dad died. You need to take, a substantial amount of time. However, I didn't listen to any of those little signals that my body was giving me, because our body is
yes,
amazing. It'll go, it's funny, I was on a Zoom call earlier today with an amazing community I've connected with, and we were talking about exactly this same thing. And one of the ladies on the call was saying, I said, you will know the signals that your body gives you when you're stressed. And I asked her to replay what they were. And she said, oh, I get a headache. And I went, excellent. I said, yes, but what happens before you get a headache? And she goes, oh, I get a stiff neck. All the muscles in my neck get stiff. And I said, and what happens before that? And she said, oh, my head's just, stuff's going around in my head. And I said, and what happens before that? And so we went backwards, and all those little signals that her body was giving her, she was ignoring till she got a headache,
yes,
which is the body doing the brick thing instead of the feather thing. It's like, hang on, you need to drink a little bit more water. Hang on, you need to do a bit of a brain dump and write down all those things that are stressing you out, just
yeah.
to get them out of your head. And actually, you just
I
need
call
to
them the
take
whispers.
the
You
whispers.
call them the feathers, I call them the whispers. I say your body whispers and it whispers, it gets a bit louder, it gets a bit louder,
Yeah,
and it starts shouting at
yeah.
you.
And then if you don't listen, your body actually takes you out,
Mm,
because it
yes,
has the long game in in its sights. It's
mm,
like, you're not going to listen. You're not going to, come on, listen to me, listen to me, listen to me. Not listening, not listening, not
yes,
listening. Whack. And that's what happened to me. So about
yes,
June 2012, I got hit with. I actually went and had a root canal. 3 weeks later, I got hit. And the root canal was really traumatic. Like, I remember sitting in the cafe afterwards, because I had to go out of town for it, and I had a root canal. And I remember sitting in the in the cafe waiting for a friend to meet me, and I was just sitting there and I was going, God, I feel weird. And there was this whole shakiness, this whole disconnection thing. this whole traumatized, and I was just sitting there going, what am I feeling? What am I feeling? And I went, oh my God, this is actually shock. I was feeling all the symptoms of shock. So the experience of the root canal traumatized my body, and I was actually in a shock state. So it had shut down. And that's what I was feeling. And it was weird.
Yes.
And I'm like, wow, that's interesting. And 3 weeks later, all these symptoms started in my body it was a whole combination of symptoms of runny bowels. Western society call it ulcerative colitis. To me, I just call it, and they call it an autoimmune condition. I just say it's a whole collection of symptoms of stress where my body had had enough and wanted to get my attention and I wasn't listening. And it started me down a journey of unwellness and really sick. Like all sorts of foods that I normally could eat just inflamed my guts. I got like runny bum. I ended up with, I don't know, as a nutritionist, I don't know how detailed you get into talking about stuff, but I could not control my bowels. I actually crapped my pants in public multiple times because I couldn't hold on. My life became so small, and that everywhere I go, I needed to know where a toilet was, and it put me in a fear state, which just added to the stress, lowered my vibration, and for someone who had lived a life of such independence, I ended up in bed for months. I remember lying in bed and my body was just wasting away because it couldn't absorb the nutrients from the food. My body shut down so much, and it was just this huge stress response. And, I did all the things, like I went to see, eventually, it took me about 6 months, I think, to go to a GP. And I went to the GP after I started passing blood. And I was thinking, that fear factor of not wanting to know what's going on versus needing to know what's going on. I had a lovely friend. I remember the first time I confessed that to a girlfriend, and she was so supportive, and she said, look, you're better off to go and get help and see a GP, because I was trying to do it all naturally and I wasn't getting any traction, and I ended up going to see a GP, and I found an amazing GP that actually listened to me and would work with me. And that started me on a whole. So I guess, because we were talking about the piece of the puzzle about taking responsibility for your health. So that one decision to go, okay, I need a starting point. So to go and see a GP, to get some help, to get some diagnosis, to do some bloods and all that sort of stuff to figure out what's going on. Because at this stage, I had no clue what was going on.
And that's important what you just said. You need the starting point, right? Because sometimes we try and pretend it's not happening, or we don't want to know it's happening, or we think that we want to do things naturally or whatever, and that's all great. But sometimes you actually just need to know what you're working with in the first place.
Yeah.
So at least you need to know what is it. Like, you can't sort of, I think Eckhart Tolle talks about sort of, you can't change something until you acknowledge where you are. But to acknowledge where you are, you need information, don't you?
Yeah.
So, whether or not you do natural or this or that or a combination, that's all great, well and good. But first you actually need to know what you're dealing with, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I needed that starting point. I needed a kickoff point. And it was key to, okay, so this is what's going on. And soon as I got my power back by going to the appointment. It's really interesting, And as much as I have a belief around, and at the time, and this was key to my well-being, is I've always had a belief, as long as I can remember, that if I can give my body what it needs, it can heal itself. And if I can stop doing what's harming it, then it can heal itself. But if I continue to do the stuff that is, there's only so much you can do, but you've got to stop the harming to do the healing, Well, that's quite good. I might write that down. You've got to stop the harming to do the healing. So I was looking for solutions. And to me, Western medicine did not have a solution. They said to me, okay, we'll put you on this medication and you'll be on this medication for life. And I went in my head, I remember thinking at the time, no. My body just went, okay, that's what you believe, but I don't believe that, because I don't believe that I'm designed to be on medication for life. I believe in emergency medicine. I believe in things to deal with massive amounts of inflammation where, like you take some prednisolone and that'll have a whatever response, or you find other thing that will, you need like triage. If you're bleeding out, you don't stick a Band-Aid on it, you put a freaking tourniquet on it, you apply pressure.
Yeah. I'm not going to the homeopath when I'm in the car accident, but
That's right.
I'm
Yeah,
going to go to the emergency. So everything has its place, and also too. I mean, we're talking about your journey. People have all different journeys, and different things work for different people. So it's not one size fits all. This is just your journey, and it's it's you know who you are. And like you were talking about, as you're talking now, you're talking about connecting with your gut, and kind of interesting connecting with your gut when it's your gut that was affected by this. But anyway,
I know.
but
It's
connecting,
hilarious, isn't it?
yeah,
And it was that. It was that tuning into what's my body telling me, because I remember
yeah,
sitting in like
yeah,
specialist office and they'd say, okay, so we want you to, like when I got really, really bad because I was losing weight and they were putting me on medications that dealt with the symptoms but didn't get to the root cause, which
mhm,
was great because, as soon as I stopped, um, I'd get periods of wellness, but because we weren't dealing with the cause, I would
mm.
relapse again. And this went on from like 2012 to about 2020
Mm.
to 2022.
That's a long time.
It's a long time. I lost
Mm,
26% of my body weight. I was down to like 50 kilos.
mm,
I worried everyone around me. But the funny thing in all of that unwellness, the things that I learned, I would not give up. Like the gifts in it was I learned to listen to my body and get really in tune because my brain shut down in a lot of ways. I had so much brain fog. I could not come up with sentences to talk. It would take me like sometimes half an hour to put together a sentence.
mm,
Um, it was really debilitating. It made me feel really vulnerable and helpless. But in all of that, I had a hope. If I can find what my body needs, it can heal itself. So that
mm,
one belief was my touchstone for finding and coming into wealth and an abundance of wealth. So like at
mm.
59, like last week, I was climbing the Pinnacle Walk in Halls Gap in the Grampians, which is a 2-hour walk uphill. And I
Okay.
got to the top and I cried because it was that was what I used to lay in bed visualizing. That was one of the things. I started meditating when I was really, really sick. And I'd visualize walking on the beach with the dog, even though I couldn't do it. I'd visualize going skiing on certain mountains, even though I couldn't do it. I'd visualize, being out in nature and doing all the stuff. So all the pieces of the puzzle that I needed, and it was listening to about what I can do here and what I can do there. And like to me, wellness is not just one piece. It's not just nutrition. It's not just, meditation. It's not just exercise. It is that and so much more. It is about having a mindset of it is about having a belief. Like I have dibs on 100. I want to live to over 100 now. I've actually come in contact with some technology that I can see myself living longer than the 100 I actually had dibs on. So even though when I was really sick, I didn't give up hope because I knew, number one, that there was stuff for me to do on the planet. And number two, I had that belief that if I can give my body what it needs, it'll heal itself. So that learning to listen to my body in decision making, I used that when I had a friend reach out, another mutual colleague who was a naturopath and offered support. So I went down the naturopath road for multiple years, but that wasn't the answer for me. I tried a whole lot of stuff, but the biggest thing and the biggest breakthrough came when I got to the root cause, and the root cause was about 2017, and it was stress. So I had all this, what do they call it? Trapped traumatic stress in my body from incidents and stuff all over the years, from childhood trauma, but also stress from not listening to my body and soldiering on through everything. So when I actually learnt the strategies to I have to go back because it's like 2017, 2018. I actually signed up to do a course by Irene Lyon, who's a nervous system regulation expert. And I did it was like a 12-week course, and I learnt so much about how to regulate your nervous system, because your nervous system dictates it drives every other system in your body.
Yes.
And all the strategies and the tips, it all gets you tuned into listening to your body and, do I have capacity for this? It's funny, I was talking to a girlfriend just before this call, and I was around there, and she's actually had breast cancer and been going through chemo. And I was saying that I've come across this revelation just like literally 2 weeks ago about how when we, as healers, because I consider myself a healer, as I know you consider yourself a healer, when we
Yes.
support other people, if we give to them from our cup and we try and feed ourselves from our cup and we give to everybody else's cup, like the grandkids, and I help out the kids and I work with clients and I work with my new tribe and I do that. If I continually give from my cup and I give more than what's in my cup, it's going to empty. However, if I let my cup get full and I know how to fill my cup, and then I keep filling my cup till it overflows, and then I give from the overflow, not from my cup,
Yes.
then I will never have an empty cup.
Yeah.
It's taken me
It's
all this
important.
time to figure that one out. And now I've figured that one out. That's the new piece in the puzzle for my business for the next thing moving forward.
Yes. Yeah.
Because
It's like the
I
aeroplane. The
will never
aeroplane,
get.
they tell you.
Sorry, say that?
I was just saying, like the aeroplane where they tell you to put your mask on, the oxygen mask on first
Absolutely.
before you feed it
That's
to your
it.
children or
And
whoever you're with.
I've just spilt my cup, so that's great.
That's right. We'll do a pause for a moment.
Let's do a pause for a moment.
Yep. We're back. We've cleaned up the spill. It's all okay. We'll survive.
No keyboards were harmed in the filming of this podcast.
I told you last time I did a spill, I did it over my power board. I don't recommend that, by the way.
No,
Don't do that.
wouldn't recommend that at all, Fee. Unless it's a pretty shocking experience. But there's a
Yeah.
dad joke right there. Yeah. What was
Oh,
it about?
perfect dad
Filling the
joke.
cup.
So, yeah, we were talking about your all of the different strategies that you had tried to help with your health. We were talking about learning to listen to your body and how important it was that you sort of started listening to your body. So we were sort of in that general vicinity somewhere, and that's what I would like to know a little bit more. So what we started talking about, and you and I talked about previously, was it's really important for us to get the message to people that there's not necessarily always one answer.
mm,
Sometimes it is a puzzle. It's about putting the puzzle together. Now, sometimes you can try all different therapies. You could go to the naturopath or the homeopath or this or that, whatever you do. Sometimes it doesn't obviously work, but sometimes it's part of the puzzle, or it kind of it gives you a foundational layer for the next thing or whatever it is. So there's just different ways of looking at it. And what I would really like to the message I would like to get across to anyone who's listening or watching is, don't be discouraged when like the first thing you do or even the second thing you do doesn't seem to have worked. It's not as always as simple as that. It's rarely as simple as that, that these things are sort of, they're layer upon layer or bits of the puzzle. And and the big thing that you were saying that I think is really relevant is that you kind of had this mindset about, if you give your body what it needs, it can heal. And you were kind of imagining you're sort of climbing up the mountain or skiing or whatever it was. So, maybe just talk a little bit about that, more about that healing journey and the things that you found that have worked for you over time.
Yeah, cool. So
Mm.
I I remember when the first time, like the value of supplements. I remember using magnesium one time when I'd injured my like neck and back in, I think it was like 2005. And I went to see my doctor. I went to the chiro, all sorts of stuff. And at this period in my life, I was actually at a really stressful time in my life. It's hilarious now that I think about it. And I remember going to the doctor and her prescribing me for the first time something like, I don't even know the name of it, Tramel or something like that. And
Mm.
not understanding that it, like the classification of the drug, that it was a really strong pain medication, but it didn't even
Mm.
take the edge off. And I
Wow.
remember going into the local health food shop and talking to the lady in there, and can't even remember how this happened, but she said, "Have you thought about taking magnesium?" And I went, "No, what does that do?" I didn't know anything about supplements back then. And oh my God, she gave me some magnesium. I took it home and I took it. That night was the first sleep that I actually, like decent sleep that I'd got in weeks. And you're really blurry my end at the moment too, Fee, just so you know. Um,
Yeah, you are as well, but that's all right. We
oh,
can hear
okay.
each other,
Yeah,
and
we're
it's
blurry.
it's
Okay.
recording, and
So,
it'll be
yeah,
fine.
um, and so that was like a piece of the puzzle. And like now I actually take like liquid magnesium in my water every day. That's one piece of the puzzle. It helps with
Yes.
pooping regularly for me. It helps with muscle, all sorts of amazing things. So one piece of the puzzle. So
Mm.
back in when I was crook, once I started doing that nervous system, it's called was Irene Lyon. The course that I did was called Smart Body, Smart Mind. It was actually learning
Mhm.
to rewire my nervous system. So I don't know if people know anything about nervous system regulation, but basically our nervous system wires. It learns, like it's put together based on our primary caregiver as a baby. And even if when you're in utero, your mum was stressed out about stuff or she was just one of those nervy people, then you will come
Mm.
out as an anxious child because your nervous system is being painted to, like blueprinted off her. And then in her
Yes.
care, or whoever's your primary caregiver, if they're a chilled, laid back person, you will grow up with your nervous system regulating correctly, or
Mm.
resourcefully or healthily. Versus like my mum was quite an anxious person, and
Mm.
the environment that I grew up in was very let's just say it felt like if you did the wrong thing, you got in trouble and there was corporal punishment. So there was
Yes.
consequences, and I grew up in a very adrenalized environment. And my natural
Mm.
energy type is I'm a push push drive person. So you combine that with my natural energy type, and I
Mm.
got into this. I have to go 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 go. You know,
Mm.
and that adrenalizes your body, and your body actually isn't designed to run and operate in adrenaline all the time because it releases, is it
Yes.
cortisol and stuff into your gut. And that's, can you explain some of that a little bit?
Yeah, yeah. So basically, it puts your body into this what's called fight flight, and when you're in fight and flight, you don't have any circulation go to your digestive system or to your sexual reproductive organs, which is why we often end up with digestive symptoms and or fertility or sexual function issues as well. So
All
you
right.
get no circulation there. All of your blood flow goes to your heart and to your arms and legs so that you can run faster because you're fight or flight. You're running from the bear or you're fighting the bear.
Yeah.
And so your body's in this mode of survival. So essentially, if your body thinks that you're about to become lunch, it does not matter if you digest lunch. Right, so
Nice.
your body's keeping you, and yeah, what it does is you release cortisol, which is a stress hormone, and you also dump a whole bunch of glucose into your system so that you can run and jump and whatever you need to do. So that's one of the reasons why it can end up sort of being problematic for people that they start, putting on weight or developing type 2 diabetes or those
Yep.
sorts of
So they
issues
get all
because you're
those
dumping all this.
blood sugar dysregulation issues.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. So you're dumping that glucose into your system, and if you literally are running from a bear, that's fine. You're going to use that
yeah.
glucose. But if you're kind of,
No, there's no
sitting
bears.
doing yes. So yeah, and that you're right that that's what happens to. I know my mother had sort of a fairly severe anxiety disorder as well. And interestingly, when I'll tell people what happened when we first got on this call before we actually started recording, you recognized sort of my energy, like, oh my God, you're really anxious. What's going on? And I told you that I had recognized it earlier in the day. I was like, oh God, I even named it in one of the meetings I was in that, oh, I'm really anxious at the moment. And even though I teach this stuff, it didn't occur to me to actually do anything about it. And I just like soldiered on, next thing, next call, next thing, next thing, next thing. I got on with you when you were kind of like, I'm not having any of that.
Yeah,
I
I'm
don't
not
like that
having
energy.
that life space, hey?
So
Yeah.
I
But
teach you
the
stuff,
thing
but
is,
it is,
it's a journey, and there's so many pieces to the puzzle. And while we might be focusing on nervous system regulation. I'm doing that course, da 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 da. We forget about this thing that we learn over here, because
yes,
the conscious brain can only hang on to like between 5 and 9 pieces of information at a time. So if you're taking your supplements, you're doing your exercise, you've got your morning routine, you're doing your meditation. For me, I do patches, which I'd love to give people a bit of information about. I use a
sure.
Healy, which is a frequency device. I regularly exercise. I do my yoga. You're going to forget some stuff. You're going to forget that, journaling's a really cool tool. You're going to
Yes,
forget, and that's okay. And that's why I'm huge on surrounding myself with people that will hold me accountable. It was like my buddy
yeah,
that just got right in my face and said, Karina, I think you need to go see the GP, you know.
yeah,
So that was part of me getting my power back by taking responsibility for my health. So I tried
yes,
all these things. So I tried the GP, they didn't give me solutions. So the key to, I noticed within doing this, starting the exercises in this step by step program. So thank you, Irene Lyon, who, if you are having any challenges around that and you caught yourself in fight flight, Irene
mm,
Lyon, if you want the educational component, she is huge.
mm,
She does an amazing
mm,
course. I think she runs it twice a year now, and it's called Smart Body, Smart Mind. So look that
mm,
up if that's speaking to you. Um, Within days, I noticed a change. My diarrhea stopped. It was huge,
mm.
right? And as soon as I started to get results, I stopped doing the course. I know, hilarious. Karina didn't quite get the message that time of realizing how important it was. So the thing about her course back then was, once you subscribed, you could rejoin and do the course every year after that if you wanted. So it has a great alumni component. So that was another piece of the puzzle. Um,
Yes.
the other thing that I came across was a at this time I could get like 6 months, sometimes 12 months of symptom free, right?
Mm,
But then I'd lapse back because I didn't have the strategies in place as daily habits, which is
mm.
what was key.
Yes.
So for anyone that's tried a lot of things and given up hope, or so close to giving up hope, I just want to say don't, because there
Mm,
are answers out there, and everybody's body is bio individual. What's going to work for me 100% might work for you
mm.
50, but that's 50%. So do that, and meditation, like that grounding exercise we did, they are great
Yes.
for bringing you into your body and connecting you to your body. And
Mm.
and do you want me to share that?
Yeah, sure.
So at the start of the call, when Fee was a little bit stressed out because she'd been under the pump all day and forgetting, and that's how I just reminded her, because she's a mate, just to go, hey, hang on a minute, can we just shut our eyes? Can we just take a breath? Can we just feel our feet on the floor? Can we feel our hands?
Mm,
I like to put my hands on my knees and just play with my fingers on my knee, because it brings me
mm,
right into my body. It takes me out of my head. My energy just drops into my body.
mm.
And if I just breathe, so I don't talk at a million miles an hour, because I get so excited because I'm passionate about empowering people. And I just notice the breath go through my nostrils, my chest expand, and I like to do big belly breaths and draw up the energy. I like my feet, so I need to drop the chair. If I put my feet flat on the ground, I can draw the energy, connect to the energy of the earth. And I know for some people that's going to sound a bit woo-woo, but just go with it. What's the worst thing that could happen? And as your whole nervous system just starts to come back online and stop running from the bear, and you drop into your heart, you become more heart-centered, you become more empathetic. And feel free to do that as many times as you like a day. You'll never wear it out, and it's a really cool thing. And I'm going to come up a little bit because I don't like feeling that low. It's just a little exercise that I do whenever I feel like I need it. And I'll go outside and I'll literally lay on the grass because we are energetic beings. And when I lay on the grass, like I just literally feel so much better. So number one, I go outside in the sun. The sun supercharged me. I feel like Superman. I lay on the grass, my energy, something I do on a regular basis. I've really got into barefoot shoes recently. I wear them. Ah, great.
There is a lot of evidence for anything to do with grounding. So that whole sort of, standing on the earth, hugging a tree, laying on the ground, whatever. And there's something I saw again the other day. Now I can't remember what it was, but there's significant evidence for it. It's actually not just, it might sound woo woo, but there is real evidence for this stuff.
I know, and you can literally feel it. When I went on my hikes a couple of weeks ago, it was severe tax on energy, and I pulled all my resources and all my tools out. I put my energy patches on, which I've got on today because I've got quite a bit on today. And I remember coming across this really big tree, and I just stopped and I went, wow, because I love trees. I love huge trees. So I was looking up. And I remember looking up at this tree and going, wow, you've been around for a long time. You've seen a lot of stuff. And I said, is it okay if I give you a hug? Like, I like to ask trees permission. I know that sounds woo-woo. And the tree said yes. So I had a hug. And I said, is it okay if I borrow some of your energy? Would that be okay? So I literally hugged and I did a recharge, which was great because I still had a long way to go. And then on the way back, I gave back. I hugged the same tree, but I gave back, because I can do a bit of Reiki. I'm into Reiki. And it was really nice to be able to give back. I haven't done that before, so that was really cool. So another piece in the puzzle is ground your energy, go outside, defrag. It's like one of the things I had to do for the call today was turn off my computer, shut all the tabs. I didn't do a defrag, but I did a dump. I did a cold boot, as they say in computer talk. So where did I get to? I got to 2019. I got to do the Smart Body, Smart Mind. Then talk about listening to your gut. I still hadn't got to a stage where I could maintain my wellness for over 12 months without relapsing in some way. I was playing in Facebook one day and I saw this little reel from this amazing chick who she said something about a Cocoa Pulse test. I don't know if you've heard of them, whether you use them, but it was like how to get your body feedback from your body about, is this food okay for you or do you have a reaction to this food? And this little reel that I saw on another friend's story or whatever it was, I went, oh, that's interesting. I need to talk to her. So I stalked her on Facebook and she was a functional nutritionist. And now I don't know how that differs from what you do, Fee, but
probably not that different, but yeah.
We just connected and I became a client of hers and now she's like one of my best mates on the planet. We're doing a business venture together, which is absolute fun to play with. But she educated me on how to nourish my body, which is what my body needed. So it was another huge piece of the puzzle. So much so now that I can go to the fridge and I'll go, what do you need, body? And I'll actually get, you need healthy fats. And I actually know what that is. So I got educated from Sal, it's like, okay, so get yourself some avo or slap some butter on that or, use a whole heap of olive oil. and or I need some macros. Okay, so what percentage does my body need of that? Okay, and might need a big. So I'm I say a meatitarian, but I eat meat, so I'm not vegan or anything like that. And I just
Yes.
listen to how my body reacts or responds to that. I know if I have a lot of dairy, anything other than butter, I'll just get mucusy the next day.
Yeah, I'm the
You
same
know?
with dairy, and I need meat, it grounds me,
Oh, right.
and so there's a clue of
Gives
what I
you
need to
energy
have
to
for dinner.
run from the bear. Yeah, and it's really interesting. Like, and I've got a friend who's full on vegetarian, and
Mm,
she's fit. She's a fit woman. Like, she's in her 60s. She's a yoga teacher. She's art. She's fun. She's one of my cold dipping friends. We're actually going for a walk this afternoon instead of cold dipping. Um, yeah, so another piece of the puzzle was that get the educated about the different food groups and how to do that. And what I loved about, so Sally Ann Kearns was her name, and what I loved about what I learnt with her, it was the knowledge about like how to plate up and how to nourish
mm,
your body with food, but also the
yes,
really important part of sit down and eat. Karina, I
mm,
still hear her in my head. Like, she's one of the people that live in my head. It's like, sit down and eat. Do not read. Do not watch
mhm.
telly.
Don't watch the news,
Don't watch
yeah.
the news. No, I don't watch the news. And I go outside as much as I can. Like, and we live in I don't know what you call this place, but it's southern Victoria, and it gets quite chilly. But I'll sit outside. I'll still sit outside on our nice covered in area and eat and just
Mm,
chill. I'll often just sit on the grass and eat on the grass. So ground my energy and take the time and express gratitude before I eat it. So I just get my digestion into that. So you probably understand more about that, but
yeah.
just get
So
my
that's rest and digest
first
mode. So
digest.
instead
Yeah.
of being in fight or flight mode, we need to be in rest and digest mode. And rest and digest mode, then you get the circulation goes to your digestive system so you can make the digestive enzymes. So then you can actually digest the food, absorb the nutrients and the calories you need, and everything goes where it should go, rather
Yeah.
than sit there and start coming back up again an hour later and
Yeah.
all that sort of stuff
Or
that
sit
happens
in
when we're
the
not
in your office.
relaxed.
Don't do that, people. Don't sit in front of the telly. Don't sit reading the paper while you're doing it. Because I used to be a big
Yeah.
reader when I used to eat. But you
Mm,
can have like reactions and emotional responses to reading the newspaper while you're sitting there if you don't, and that'll take you out of rest digest. So you're not getting the nutrients from your food. And what I noticed with that was when I did that, when I sat and I ate and I let my body rest in, like, drop into that rest digest state, I
mm,
actually didn't. I was number one more present when I was eating, and I actually didn't have to eat as much
mm.
because Sal taught me to listen to my body, like what my body's full signal was, and just that
Yes.
as you eat and you talk and you take your time doing it, I'll get a
Mm,
burp that comes up,
mm,
and that's the last
mm.
bit of air escaping, and I'll just get that, "Oh, okay, I'm done." And like, I did that before when I was eating my lunch. I was like, I still had food left on my plate,
Mm.
but I went, "No, actually, I'm done." And I just left it. And that was
Yeah,
another piece of actually learning to listen to my body because I grew up
there's
with,
a difference between satisfied, full, and bursting, and most of us, because we eat unconsciously, we go to full or bursting, and, like, I grew up it's probably the same as you, I know I grew up with you have to eat everything on your plate,
yeah, that's
and
it.
this
Because my mum and
someone
dad grew
starving in
up in the
China or
Depression.
something.
Yeah,
Mm,
and there was lack.
yes.
And I remember
Yeah.
after I was married and I was plating up and I was eating, when I was serving our own, like me and my hubby's meals. And I remember eating and getting to the point where I had that epiphany of, actually, I don't have to finish what's on my plate because I'm
No.
actually full.
Mm,
And that was huge. And when I realized that, I actually began to shift weight, which was really
yes.
interesting because I started once again hooking into listening to my body. So
Mm,
so I did that. But like the last piece, like I've been learning yoga, I've been doing yoga and stuff like that. But one thing I actually really want to bring to people's attention because it has been a massive piece of, now I learnt the words for this. It's foundational priority, foundational healing priority. What's that three thing?
mhm.
What's that called?
I don't know.
You don't know
I
what
just
that's
always
called?
call it I just talk about the foundational medicine or foundational body needs or whatever, but
Oh,
I
no.
don't quite
Okay,
know
so
that.
Sal talks about it, and she'll be so your body will actually heal north to south. So wherever your body needs the most healing, it will start there. So when you start on a new thing, you mightn't think you're making any progress because you don't see anything, but your body's prioritizing the foundations for healing first.
Mm,
So often people give up too soon. So they'll
mm,
start something and then they go, oh, this isn't working. But they haven't actually stayed with it long enough because their body's actually doing all this unseen stuff. And
yeah.
was it last year, March last year, Sal introduced me to, I'm going to show you what this is. So these
Mhm,
little patches, and they're actually
mhm,
a very sophisticated piece of technology that is patented. They've been designed, and you stick them on your body, so it's got sticky on
mm,
it, and I've got one on my arm today, and they're actually
mhm,
stem cell reactivation patches. So they actually use your body's own infrared light that we emit
mhm,
to reflect. So each living thing emits infrared light, and hence why when people put on night vision glasses, they actually see, the little blue images, the little red images, and stuff like that. So how
yes.
these patches work is they have a patented crystalline structure, and they have different
Mm,
types. This one is their flagship, which is called X39, and actually
mm,
reflects the crystals reflect the light back into your body, hits your skin cells, sends a message
mm,
to your brain, and does all sorts of sciencey stuff that I'm not really that up with, because to me the details don't matter. It's the results that matter for me. And since I've
mm,
been wearing them, what I have noticed is that foundational priority of healing happened in my body. I just
mm,
noticed bit by bit by bit changes in my body. I noticed that I wasn't as tired as what I normally was. I was
mm,
sleeping, I was starting to sleep up, so much better, because I was actually having a lot of menopause and postmenopause symptoms.
mm,
I didn't have the energy to keep up with the grandkids. I was waking up like 3 or 4 times a night to pee. And
mm,
gradually that went down to like 2 nights, 2 times a night, down to one night over a period of time. And they recommend that you wear them for, depending on how long you've been on the planet, for every 10 years you've been on the planet, you wear them for a month till all your stem cells are actually reactivated. Because by age 30, 50% of our stem cells are actually dormant. By age 60, and I'm 59 if you remember, then like only about 10% of your stem cells are actually active. And the beauty of the stem cells is they actually become whatever cell, like they're the hero cells in the body.
whatever's
So whatever,
needed.
if you need a
Yeah.
gut cell repaired, they become that. If you need a brain cell, a skin cell, a muscle cell, a nerve cell, they're the regenerative parts of your body. So pretty important, and hence why we age. And so
Yes.
when
Yeah.
she introduced me to these, talk about big piece of the puzzle come on board. I have not had one flare up, one issue around my gut. I have
Mm,
been able to sustain my wellness. And I can actually even eat gluten now. I don't do
mm,
gluten because it I get a whole lot of symptoms that go off in my body. But if I'm
mm,
glutened by accident or even on purpose, because sometimes I do
mm,
that just to test to see what my body does, I'm
mm.
actually okay. And before, I
Yes.
would have a full up flare, diarrhea, all sorts of stuff going on. My eyes
Mm,
get sensitive to light. I feel like I'm like walking through porridge. That stuff just doesn't even happen anymore. Um,
mm.
I've
That's
cut
brilliant.
myself with a knife, like I was chopping up stuff the other day, and seriously, I hacked through my fingernail. I haven't done that in years. I was using a global knife, so a chef's knife, and I sliced through my
Mm,
finger and my nail. And within a week, seriously, it had healed. So we're like 3 weeks in, and you can't even tell that I did it. And I don't know if you
mm,
know about cuts, but a knife cut is actually worse than a scrape or a scratch because it's clean edges and they're harder to heal.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
had amazing results. So if people are interested in that, I'm more than happy to hook them up with that. So when we talk
Yeah.
about pieces of the puzzles and strategies, it's yoga, it's eating, well. I don't drink much anymore at all because I found out how bad that was for your body. I never used to drink that much anyway. But I do like an occasional espresso martini if you want to shout me next time we're together, Fee. Um,
I stopped
um,
drinking 30 years ago.
hey?
I
Yeah,
stopped
I
drinking
know.
30 years ago.
Every so
My
often I'll
body
have one.
stopped me. That was my body stopped me. I
Yeah,
literally, my body said no more. I would go from, I went from being a big drinker to being, one drink would make me violently ill within about 20 minutes, and I'd be violently ill for 3 days.
wow. That's a big
And,
that's a big brick, isn't it?
it is, yes.
Yeah,
Yes, I always joke and say it was like my guardian angel came and smacked me upside the head and said,
yeah,
"Stop it,"
yeah,
because I wasn't drinking in a healthy way by any means either. So
yeah.
it's good that my
Yeah,
body
maybe
stopped
that
me.
was
But
it. Yeah.
yeah, because people
So
say, "Oh, you're so well, you stopped. You're so like, how did you do it?" And I'm like, "Oh,
my
it
body was
wasn't
saying,
hard."
"Don't do it, don't do it, don't do it." Yeah,
Because after having that experience twice, I didn't want to do that again. So I was like, "Okay, it wasn't
yeah,
really a choice." So it was good. My body didn't give me a choice. It just said, "You're not doing that.
yeah,
We're not doing
yeah.
that. Stop it."
Can so relate. And it was that, like, if I had one at lunchtime, I was
Yeah.
okay. But if I had a drink around about 5 o'clock or something like that, I'd wake up at like 2 o'clock
Yeah.
in the morning.
Mm.
And then
Yeah.
I saw where the pattern
Yeah.
was, and I went, "Oh, that's a little bit. That's not working for me." So I just stopped because it wasn't that
Yeah.
big of a
Yeah.
deal.
People
So.
don't realize that with alcohol, it might put you to sleep, but it actually does wake you up a few hours later.
Mm. Yeah, because
People
your
don't
body,
realize
because
that.
what is your body's trying to detox it, because that's what it
Yeah,
does.
it's when your liver's sort of doing all
So
its
so
detoxification.
many pieces of the puzzle. The body's amazing. It
Yeah.
has that wisdom or
Yeah.
that internal ski guide, if you're me. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and like the payoff for listening, the benefits of listening to your body are huge. We
Yeah.
have this
They are.
innate guidance system that's there. It gives us red flags. Sometimes we don't listen. And there's
Yes.
consequences for that. But it is easy to get back on track. So don't give up, folks. If you've tried a
No.
lot of things and you think, oh yeah, that'll work for Karina, but it won't work for me, then
Yes.
what if it did? What if it did
Yeah.
work for you? What if one of the things I spoke about was another piece to your healing journey puzzle? And
Yeah,
to
yeah,
me,
and that's the thing, it's
mindsets,
those puzzle parts, you never know which is the part that's just gonna
yeah,
connect with all the other parts, and it's just gonna sometimes the parts have all been put in, but they're not really connected to each other yet, and then
yeah,
you
that's
sort of do
right.
that last step and they
And
connect,
and you
so
got to sort out,
it's
the pieces of the puzzle to make the jigsaw. It's really interesting because
yeah,
some of the patches, it's really interesting with these. Some people put one patch on and they get like they feel instant stuff. And then
yeah,
others, like me, and I call myself the
yeah,
drip feed, it took me months and months
yeah,
and months to, feel the benefit. But I also
yeah,
knew that I had to patch consistently for 6 months to
yeah,
activate. So my body was doing that whole foundational priority of healing. So it was probably healing
yeah,
a lot of gut stuff. I'd had old
yeah.
injuries of, like frozen shoulder and neck issues and
That's the
um,
thing, we need to remember that it took us often a long time to get to where we are
I
now, and then
know,
we want like, you start taking a supplement or you start doing something and it doesn't work in 5 minutes, you're like, "Oh, it doesn't work." So, well,
I
give your
know.
body a little bit of time.
And I think part of traditional medicine is to blame there because people, if
Yeah,
they get on a script and they're taking a script, if they don't get a result in a day, they don't go,
yeah,
oh, it didn't work, so I'm not going to take it anymore. You've got to take it for at
no,
least 3 months sometime to see some results. And
yes,
if
yeah,
you start if you start doing yoga in the morning to ground your energy and to get the flexibility and the energy and stuff in your body, you're not gonna get the results overnight, people. But you do it consistently. I've been doing it now consistently for 2 years, and wow,
uh, what
it's
what
amazing.
was that TV commercial? "It won't happen overnight, but it will happen."
Yeah, that.
That was the TV commercial for shampoo 2 or 30
Oh,
years
right,
ago or
that.
something.
Yeah, yeah.
Rachel
Yeah, that.
Hunter, I think was. Anyway, look, I'm super aware of time. We've gone way over time because you and I can talk a lot, and the only person I've met who can talk more than me, I think, might be you. We both talk a lot, which is great. It was always so much to talk about, but we do need to wind it up because I'm aware we've both got other things to do this afternoon. But look, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I've really enjoyed having you on.
Thank you for having me, Fee. It's been a pleasure.
And I'll put details in the show notes of how people can contact you. Is there any particular way, or are you just happy for me to put your details there? What would you like to tell
All my
people about
details. I'm
contacting
more
you?
than happy to. I love a chat and I love connecting. I love to hear people's stories. So if people just want to hit me up with a text message, I'm more than happy to for you to put my mobile there. They can send me an email. I am on Facebook. Whatever works for you. So
Yeah, no
I'm
problem.
pretty flexible, and working 3 days a week. I will get back to you eventually.
And thank you so much for giving your time, but also just by sharing so openly about your experience and by the strategies that you used. And really, what it comes back to is, listening to your body, learning how to tune in, learning how to listen to your body, because there's a lot of wisdom there.
Thanks, Fee.
Mm. Well, thank you. And look, thanks for everybody who's watching and listening. Please like, subscribe, and share. And if you can go into iTunes or Spotify or wherever and also rate and review, I would really appreciate that. The point of this podcast is to have real conversations about things that matter. So thank you so much for this week. And I'll talk to you all again next week. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.